Hi everyone. So in a video some way back in this tutorial series, I discussed the difficulties with setting a network mode inside the game and the problems that were caused by that. So if you recall, in a previous version of this add-on, the network mode was actually set from the network panel, which was originally saved in the world scene settings. I've now done a few things to fix that system. Number one, we've moved the networking panel into the scenes panel, as you can see here. I've also removed the net mode selection option because that is now something you set in-game using messages. And I've also enforced a limit to ensure that the networking panel is only ever enabled in one scene. The reason for that is that the networking system currently only supports global logic. It doesn't have any notion of scenes or context. And whilst it is possible to attempt to mimic that, I think there are better solutions to doing so, especially because the logic would still be globally based. So for now, we're just going to limit ourselves to one scene, and I may in future modify how things run to accommodate the changes. So in this particular context, not a lot has changed besides that interface. However, in the RPC calls panel, the icon on the left of the RPC name is gone. I did experiment with an indicator which told you whether that RPC call could be run, but there's quite a lot of different conditions when an RPC call could or couldn't be run, and it's quite difficult to express that with icons which are not designed for such a task. So I decided against that for now. In addition to this, it's now important just to look over how we're actually setting the network mode. In a separate scene, I am starting in this scene and sending the set netmode message with a corresponding suffix of either server or client in lowercase, and the case does matter. Immediately after sending this message, I set the scene to scene, and the reason I do that is because the next frame after this code or this logic is run, all the messages in the scene will be considered to have been received and therefore cleared. So if we set the scene any later than this point, the actual game scene won't receive that message. And the object that would receive that message is the listener object. And if the listener doesn't receive the message, then it can't actually set the network mode, and you'll be stuck in a non-network enabled game. So that brings me on to my next point. When you don't have a net mode selected, the network scene defaults to a normal game system where it updates at the frame rate and it just runs the logic bricks, and no network code of any kind is being run. This means that the network state system is not run, and more importantly, it doesn't do anything to protect against running the wrong states when a net mode isn't assigned. So if we take our Suzanne object, which I suspect is actually in a safe state, but let's set Suzanne to the server state, just to visualize it. Now, if we started the game like this and added an instance of Suzanne, Suzanne would actually default to a network state, and it would default to the server state. Ideally, you would want it to start in a no network state at all, but the problem with that is that in order to actually be able to detect a network object and set its network state, we need to be running network code, and I think it's best that we don't. So for that reason, it generally makes sense to start a scene, a network scene, once you've actually assigned the net mode, which we do separately in a separate scene. So in short, you could actually add the net mode selection as an overlay, but I think it's best not to do that in order to prevent any state running that you don't want. So that's that, and that means now that you can set your net mode. So I will demonstrate without any physical game code running. I'm just going to show you the console readout. So if I start the game, you'll see it's waiting for net mode assignment. If I hit F1 for the server, you'll see it says running as server, whereas if I hit F2, you'll see it says running as client. So those are the changes there, and overall it makes it much more easy to use the network system. So I'll keep you posted with my changes. Thank you for watching.